Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Brunslick, and this is a special one. This episode is being released on my 38th birthday. And whoa, 37 was a doozy. Um, those years where like just months go by and you're like, okay, I get it. There's lessons that I have not learned yet that I'm needing to. And you're like, yeah, that's every year. At first I had like super high hopes of being like, I'm gonna create for my birthday episode 38 things I learned, or maybe it'd be 37 things I learned in my 37th year, or I could do 38. I've learned going into my 30th year. I don't know what I learned. Like every single thing. Do you know how long it would take me to get through 38? Because you know how long-winded I am. Like basically, it would be things like cheese curds is a food group. Yeah, prove me wrong. But I will say, as I am like a couple weeks ago, I went to Cairo Fest, came back, and I haven't talked to you guys about it. That was a really interesting event. If you have not been to Cairo Fest, I would drag your ass out to the Pacific Northwest next September. Paul Reed, such a nice guy. Wow. Really nice guy. Matt Hubbard was the MC, which I have seen Matt Hubbard speak before. He's so funny. It's funny because he's also a pastor. And I think he's a chiropractor and pastor. I don't know. I don't pay attention to things enough. But yeah, he doesn't feel like a pastor. So then you accidentally let down your guard and then you accidentally drop an F bomb to a pastor. And then your friend Denise is like, Lauren. And I'm like, sorry, but I do swear to God. So like God knows. I think I literally said, like, "You should see the way I talk to God." Like, Matt wants me to talk to him different. No, so when I got off the stage though, I realized that I went and spoke a lot on the my kind of one of my favorite topics to speak about now, which is this dilemma that we have ourselves in within chiropractic. And I don't think it's specific to chiropractic, just so we're clear. But basically, one of the stats that I've seen consistently is 50% of chiropractors are out of practice within 5 years of practice. Now, I saw someone on the Women DC Chiropractors page. They were collecting research for a homecoming thing at Life, and she had found that only 20%, 28% of women are still in practice 5 years into practice. And I think we have lots of different explanations for that, right? Like, babies, but, breastfeeding, recovery, all of that things especially. But, like, when we really start to deep dive down, I think we have a couple main issues that I'm really passionate about working to continue to solve within like, and I don't think I'm gonna solve it like, "Oh, fixed it over the weekend." But, like, when I really look at the mission of, like, what am I doing? You know, practice was fun for a while, and I still like adjusting. But the reality is I realized multiple years ago that my vision and mission, my calling, if sorry is the better word I'm looking for, my calling within chiropractic wasn't with one-on-one patients. I like adjusting, but really I love the idea of helping heal the healer or healing the profession because it is so great. And we have just kind of a crisis as far as success rates. And so, first things first, here's how we're going to solve this. Okay. So here you go. Get your pen and pencil because we're going to solve all of chiropractic right now. I need you guys to stop opening businesses unless you're super passionate about being an entrepreneur. Now, you're going to go, Lauren, I am not making any money at my associate job. Okay. So, second, we need clinic owners who are really have that like grit and resilience and glutton for punishment. They need to get their profit margins in check. If you don't know what I mean by that, then you're part of the problem. Because if we can't afford to pay associates an amount that they need to get by, then they're going to feel forced to go start their own business. And then they burn out because it's really exhausting. Like it's really, really exhausting growing a business, especially when that's something that doesn't fuel you. Like, yeah, maybe it fuels you the first year. But like when you talk about resilience, it's a really necessary trait because you get beat up a lot. a lot. I was talking to Tracy Wilson. I don't know if you guys know him, but at ChiroFest, and he just like nailed this on the head. And he said, we need to give associates the pay that they need and to path to the pay that they want. And it was like, oh my God. Yeah. So like we kind of have this thing. All right. So we're ready to, are we going to beat up on Gen X a little bit? You guys know I beat up on Gen Z. Gen X, you guys offered these salaries that were like $25,000 and it spooked everyone. And so then they're like, I don't want base plus commission. I don't want base plus commission. I just want a stable salary. But here's the deal, Gen Z, a lot of us, most of us, especially the cash family pediatric practices, cannot afford to guarantee you $90,000 unless we start making more money or we have like amazing profit margin. Like we just don't have it. You realize that the average clinic owner is not making that at all. Like the average clinic owner is making less than $90,000. It's somewhere between 62 and 85, depending on the stat that you pull. And so it's just like, all right, we've got some stuff to do. We really, really do. Now, if you are one of the people that started a practice and you're exhausted, it is really exhausting to, I'm just going to say it, it's exhausting to be broke. It's exhausting to constantly feel like you are in fight or flight, worrying about paying your bills, feeling like all of your efforts in marketing are not paying off. You feel uncertain. You can't hire a CA. You can't hire an associate. You can't take a vacation. Like, that's exhausting. It really, really is. So if your clinic was kind of a failure to launch, ooh, that's what I'm going to name it. No, because that's insulting. Okay. Anyways, I wanna start. I don't know where this is gonna go, but in my 38th year, like I hopefully want to start working with some of the clinics that are like, hey, Lauren, I'm seeing 20 people a week. I am not getting by. I do not want to do this anymore. Like, we already have that associate ad part of the piece of the puzzle. Now I want to start incorporating that other piece, which is Kairos selling their smaller practices, these practices that are cute because, oh, again, Gen Z and millennials, like we make cute branding a lot of times. And this is why, a lot of current students, they graduate and they don't want to go spend $500,000 on this clinic that has deer wallpaper and like carpeting from the Mercedes 80s. Like they don't want to do that. And so it's literally never been cheaper to just start your own practice. Now it's also expensive if you look at like you don't make any money, but like you could hang your shingle up pretty cheap. And so just trying to find that beautiful exit strategy for chiros that are like, I created this cute clinic. It is turnkey. It's 25 grand. I just want to like get a little sales from it and I'm gonna go grab myself a great associate job or things like that. That's what I want to start like bringing in. So, if you are one of those people that's in that situation, feel free to DM me because I would love to like chat. I won't like post your name or anything like that. Zero shame, zero guilt. Like that is really, really important for us to move forward with. That if you went into practice and you're like, nah, this isn't for me, like zero shame, zero guilt. I am proud of you for keeping yourself from burning out. So, okay, so this is my birthday episode. There we go. There was my insights from 37. So I've got a very special birthday gift for you for my birthday. So today you are going to be hearing free clips from content pillars from both of my courses, the Launchpad and the Growth Lab. So normally you'd have to pay for these. You don't. Normally the Launchpad is priced at $997. That's 900. Sorry, not $10, guys. And the Growth Lab is at $297. But for 2 weeks after this episode releases, so from September 29th, which is my birthday, until October 12th, 2024, you will be able to save $200 off the Launchpad, $100 off the Growth Lab, and an additional $100 if you end up buying both. So you will absolutely not be able to get this price until I don't know, maybe next year when I turn 39. So make sure to click the specially dated links below to get that crazy price. So we'll have checkout links, but we'll also include the landing pages for you so you can really look into like what is all included in that course. Now, if you're listening after October 12th, do not worry. I have a consolation prize. Just click the links that are labeled after October 12th links, and you'll still save a little bit. It's not going to be saving $400. I'm sorry, but it is still good. But you got to listen to these episodes sooner. Okay, let's do a listener highlight because this is an episode celebrating the podcast and me. It's my birthday. So all right, which one am I gonna pick? Okay. Oh, this is from one of my favorite humans, Rachel Hovey. That's totally how you say her name. Says, I've been listening to She Slays for years, and I've probably heard almost every episode. It's so great to turn on my podcast Monday morning and have something to inspire and get me going. I've been in practice for over 10 years, and I love that she gets me thinking about new ideas and different avenues for growth. My whole team also listens weekly. Thanks, Dr. LB, for all you do. So if you wanted to give me a gift, I don't know, just since we're in this like thing where I'm giving you a gift and you give me one. There are two things that I will ask you to do real quick. We'll pray and then we'll get getting. One, leave a review. It helps. Two, and if you're only going to do one of these two things, do the second one because I actually learned from Ellen Yin, the creator of Cubicle the CEO, that the second one matters more when it comes to getting growth in podcasts. Click follow or subscribe. Like, oh, it really, really helps a podcast out. So if you're going to do both, yay, thank you. If you're only going to do one, click follow or subscribe. All right, let's pray and then let's get into some content. Hey, Gad, it's my birthday. You know that. I just wanted to say just an abundance of gratitude for another year of life on this crazy spinning planet. I'm so grateful for the amazing opportunities, the amazing conversations, the amazing relationships, the good. But God, you know, I'm always here to thank you for the bad. Um, a mentor of mine recently said, 5-star reviews are nice, but where I learn is from the 1-star reviews. And God, I feel like there have been a couple 1-star reviews of Lauryn Brunslick this year that were really there from you. Thanks for the 1-star review, God. Just being like, no, they were my spirit angels going, you can do better, girl. You can do better. And I know I would never elect to go through the discomfort, like ever. I would always stay comfortable. And most of us would. And so thank you for those 1-star reviews and getting us uncomfortable so we can continue being just the absolute best version of ourselves. Oh, keep me healthy and chasing my dreams. Surround me with amazing people who think bigger than me because it continues to force me out of my comfort zone as well. And I'm looking forward to all the adventures ahead with the most amazing husband that I could not do this podcast without, and kids. So thanks for all the love and blessings and being with me through it all. Amen. Okay, so this first clip that we're going to listen to is from the Launchpad. So, and you're going to hear me talking about training on having crucial conversations in your clinic. So, I am reminded of a conversation I had a couple weeks ago about something that they termed the COI. So, COI is cost of inaction. Now, David Fletcher, who is a sponsor of this podcast, CLA, woo woo, he is the one who brought this up. So a lot of us are very obsessed with ROI, return on investment, right? So like ROI on marketing, ROI on meetings, this and that. But a lot of times we don't think of the COI, the cost of inaction. And if you're like me, you are working on being a kind leader. And so sometimes what happens, I've joked that I'm a recovering alpha male and, my communication style is direct. But yet when it comes to having some of these crucial conversations with employees about lack of performance or things like that, it really has stalled me. And there's been months, if not more than a year of times where I have delayed a conversation that needed to happen with an employee. And like, I just think back of like, yeah, it was hard, but like waiting so long, what did that cost? What did that cost? Like, not just in profit from the clinic, but like cost that person from their growth trajectory. Like, if we're here as leaders, we're not just here for the balloons and the rainbows and the cupcakes. We have truly been put in a situation like I believe our employees, our friends, um, our family has been put like in our life. Like I am of the notion that we chose our family, that like our soul connected and chose this path. And so whether it's family, friends, or employees, like, I believe if you consider yourself a leader, that it is our job to help push people and help them grow as well and not wuss out and be like, oh, I just want them to like me. And so instead, I'm not going to do anything. So we're going to listen. Reminder, this is a clip from one of the 13 pillars included in the Launchpad. Enjoy. Today, we are talking about crucial conversations with our staff. And nobody wants to deal with crucial conversations. We don't want to be on the giving end, and our staff don't want to be on the receiving end. So, for everybody listening, if you have a conversation that you've been avoiding with an employee, um, with a friend, with a spouse, today we're going to really focus on employees, but all the stuff we're talking about will be absolutely applied. Um, I just grant you that courage to go forward and do what needs to be done from a place of your heart, just being heartful. Um, and for those that don't have anything burning, listen up because there's some pre work that you should do now. So when you inevitably do need to have a difficult conversation, you will still get something out of this, even if you're like, I don't have anybody I should fire. Um, okay, so what is a crucial conversation? A crucial conversation, when I'm talking about this, it's a hard conversation. It's a conversation that you're planning, but the other person is not. um, so they might be anticipating, they might be feeling the energy that like, ugh, something gross is going on with our energies, like, and they agree that a conversation needs to happen. But that crucial conversation is like this minefield for hurt feelings. And a lot of times we avoid crucial conversations for one big reason. We don't want to make the situation worse. And I would argue that it rarely makes it worse, but it may escalate. And those are different things. Those are really, really different things, meaning that now we're going to talk through how to have a crucial conversation so it doesn't end in any of these ways, hopefully. But like there could be some very big emotions that come out of things. And um, that might just draw to the surface, it being even more obvious that maybe that employee is not the right employee for you. Or maybe you'll both cry and break bread, and going forward, things will be better, but things will get worse in that conversation. But ultimately, things are going to escalate. But I don't know that you need to be worried about making things worse. Because if you as a boss are having these thoughts of like, oh, I really need to sit down and talk to so and so, like this needs to happen. So as a CEO, chiropreneur, we wear lots of hats, lots and lots of hats. And one of the hats that we have to wear, we're a boss, right? Okay. And we think about like we're marketing and we're the doctor, but then the bigger your staff gets, the more that the hat of like HR, being a human resources person, comes in, and being like a manager versus a boss. So, what I mean by that is when you're having some of these crucial conversations with your staff, I want you to think about doing it as a manager and not a boss. Now, there's a really nuanced thing here, but I want you to like just hang with me for a sec. A manager is managing people. Okay. So a manager often doesn't have the authority to just straight up fire someone if they want to. They got to like clear it up the flagpole. I don't know. Like none of us are like managers in corporate America, but you can imagine, right? So like a manager's goal is to manage employees. A boss is there to tell people what to do. A boss is there to be like, you are underperforming. I need you to be better. A manager is there to go like, okay, what's going on? How, like, are you confused? Do you need more information? Like, you can see how the manager plays a little more detective because they are working with that person. So, when anytime you're approaching a conversation with one of your employees, you want to think that, okay, I am not their boss, although you are their superior, but like I'm going to sit down as a manager to talk with them. Now, the other thing is you want to make sure that the earlier you do these conversations, the better. My cat is biting my feet. Just stop it, cat. So the earlier that you address these things, the better. There, you get less in your head. There becomes less of a story, less of a narrative, like all sorts of different reasons. But like the sooner that you can sit down with someone, it's a lot more nonchalant versus like, okay, we need to talk. And then when you're going into these conversations, remember you are going to do way more listening than you are talking. But that's why we need to train on this because what you say really matters. What you say, because it's going to be limited, matters. And this is something that I have had to work so hard on because I am a verbal processor, which is a fancy way of saying I talk in circles and circles and circles and circles and circles until I realize my point. And so, this process of having to have these tough conversations and get the best outcome possible is truly something that, like, I've learned, like, am learning and continuing to get better at. So as your team grows, you're going to have more of these sit downs in the beginning when it's just you and one employee. Although, one of the questions from somebody today, I know there is just them and their one employee. And then that can make things even more awkward because you're like, come into my office. And they're like, why? Let's just talk right here. Okay. But the more people you have, the more of these conversations you have to have. And I know that sounds really obvious, right? Um, for instance, everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you have a huge team. And it's like, it is not huge. We've got 10 of us. Well, that's a lot of people to manage. I've had 6 little sit downs just in the last 2 weeks alone. Okay. So as your team grows, you will get more and more practice. And so, again, these are the things that are really, really good for you to be training on now. It is an essential part of leadership. Often people say, I really want to work, I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better leader to my team. And this is how God grows that in you. God does not go like, poof, okay, you're a better leader and you didn't have to do any hard work. Um, no, God gives you these opportunities that are tough, that not everybody can handle and you want to avoid, but He gives you these opportunities to be uncomfortable and work through it and figure out the hard part. The hard part. That is the only way to becoming a better leader is by working through the uncomfortable part of stuff and getting better at it. Okay. So the pre-work that like, so let's say that you're listening
and you're like, I don't have any uncomfortable situations. I don't have any crucial conversations that I need to have with someone. Yay. Okay. So now's a good time for you to create basically a team manifesto, a a little more than a mission statement. A mission statement is a lot of like the dream, the vision. What I mean by like a manifesto is how your team interacts with life. What is the culture of work ethic that you are creating? What is the core of the patient experience at your clinic that is your manifesto? That's the best word for it. So it doesn't need to be long, but I wouldn't make it overly short, and you'll see why. So an example of a statement that you would have. Let's say you come up with, 10 to 12 different statements as a team, and I would absolutely build these out as a team. We did this a while ago, and we're going to be doing it again for our team meeting, our annual team meeting. And I'm actually going to laminate. I'm going to get them all put on like a little card, little tiny print, and laminate it and have everybody carry it with them, on them at all times in their pocket, visible on their desk. And again, you'll see why when we talk later about actually having the crucial conversation, why this would be so helpful. But so, like, one of the statements might be that we are always going above and beyond to show how much we care to our team, or we constantly train to be the best, or like, so all of these like statements about like we handle situations with honesty, and this, you're just coming up with these statements that like this is who we are and this is how we do business. um Now, once you have this, so it's a great team exercise. You do not need to wait until your annual meeting to do this. I hope you all do an annual meeting. If not, somebody send in a question. If you want me to talk about one of these trainings about an annual meeting, let me know. But so come up with this core beliefs of how business should be done. So then, anytime that you have an employee that is not living up to these standards, absolute standards of what you're saying is really important for your team, in order for the clinic, in order for your team environment, for the patient experience, then you can just go like, hey, Sue, can I talk to you for a sec? And go like, so hey, our third thing on our manifesto is that we don't bring negativity into the office. And I've noticed you've really been talking about the news a lot lately. Like, what's going on there? Like, type of thing. And then it becomes less about you are getting them in trouble and more about like, hey, we have this like code of ethics and standards that like we all came up with together, and you're not like doing the thing. What's going on? And it doesn't mean, like, you're just pointing out like she's breaking the rules, versus like, hey, you know what? You didn't even know this was a rule and I'm mad and deciding it right now. Okay. So this is a really good exercise. I would highly recommend you take an hour with your team to come up with this, even if it is just you. Now, if it is just you and one other person, and you're like, well, this seems awkward, I always love doing the exercise of bringing that team member in on the ethereal next hire. What I mean by that is, so many bosses feel awkward when it's just them and their front desk. And they're like, well, it's just us two. Do we really need to like come up with a manifesto? Do we really need to come up with a code of ethics? Do we have to do that? Like, we're both good. We both know. And what you can say is go like, yeah, we both know this, but when we bring on our next employee, we want to make sure that they are at the same level, the same standard of care that we expect. And so having these outlined are really helpful and will be really helpful for the next employee to fall into line really fast. And then your person goes, oh, okay, I get it. So really talking about like I do this with my doctors where I might feel silly doing a training or a training manual, but I'll go like, but the next doctor we hire needs to be similar, like, needs to know how to do this too. And so what we're doing is we're doing the work so the next employee has a smoother transition to like catch up with us. And then they're like, oh, that makes total sense. So let's say now let's get to the actual part of like, well, all right, we don't have a manifesto or a code of ethics, and I need to talk to someone, and they suck. And I didn't do it right away. It's actually been a couple months, and now I'm all heated and hot and bothered about it, and I'm not really sure how to do this. Okay, so I have notes down here just in case. You guys, if you're watching, this is where I'm looking. This is where my notes are. This is not all memory. Okay, so one of the first things that you need to figure out is this salvageable? Okay, you want to fire the person. Like, is it time to fire them, or is it time to just have a conversation? And I believe I give multiple second chances. So I believe that most of the time, your answer is going to be, I think I can salvage this. And I think it's worth a conversation. So then you want to make sure that you really understand what your goal is. What is your goal out of this conversation? And you need to get like crystal clear. And this is where you need to think bigger picture, not in the weeds. Okay. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you have an employee that is habitually 1 to 2 minutes late. Like you are like, all right, at this time, we start our shift meeting. And like from there, like 8:30. 8:30 is when we are at the desk and we start the shift. And okay, and you consistently have an employee that is showing up 1 to 2 minutes late into the shift meeting. Now, my goal, I have to figure out, is my goal that they get there on time? Is that the actual problem? No, the actual problem is that if they're doing it and that tells the rest of the staff that it's okay for them to do it. And then all of a sudden, 1 to 2 minutes turns into 2 to 4, turns into 5 minutes. And we've got a lot of people who's wasting time. So you see how, like, you work through, like, okay, it's not about that little thing, it's about the bigger picture on working with a team and what your concern is could happen down the road, or what message that sends to the rest of your staff. So really keep that goal of what you want to accomplish. You want them to understand that it's bad for the team if they keep showing up 1 to 2 minutes late. Big difference. Big difference in that goal. Because if you stay with the petty shit, and like being late isn't a petty thing, but like a lot of times by the time we want to talk to someone, it's really hard to put into words why they're so annoying and we need to talk to them. And it does come down to like air quotes, petty. Like, well, I just don't like, I've told her not to drink soda at the front desk. She still does. And then like I asked her this, like it just every time I've talked to someone, they're just like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a big deal. And I'm like, no, I get it. And so a lot of times, if you think through, like, hey, what's actually the problem here? It's not the soda. It's that it makes our clinic look hypocritical if I'm over here talking about hydration and that our patients see you drinking soda, right? Okay. So you know the goal. Then you need to really set your heart right. No ego comes into this. You might be shocked, but this is something that's been really difficult for me to learn, and why I would go in and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Um, and this is not the time for you to exert dominance or power or shame. It is really, you are going in with a caring heart, trying to find that person. Find where are they in this day, in this journey, on this rock planet, like orbiting around the sun. Where are they? And connect with them. Meet with their highest self for this conversation. And it truly takes a very like calm, centered, heart-filled leader to go searching for where they are. They're technically right in front of you. I don't mean like, where are you in the building? I mean, we are so busy as humans just going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing that finding like, hey, where are you? Like, be here with me right now. Going and finding and meeting that and help pulling that person into the present moment for this conversation for the higher good of the clinic is difficult. Like, being a leader is hard, you guys. We do not realize until you are having to do the work where you're like, oh, this is what I'm asking for. And it's like, yeah. So, okay, know your goal, ego aside, absolute, like, no place for it. And then the third thing is really think about who you are sitting down with. Okay. What is their Enneagram? If you know that. If you don't, can we say back up to the pre work and like things to fill your team meeting or your annual meeting with? Figure out their Enneagrams. I also just did a training on like colors. It's like, that was an interesting, know your colors. It's easier than the Enneagram to figure out. It's not as in depth or like nuance, but if you're looking for something like, hey, this would be a fun little thing, you could honestly figure out your team's colors in less than an hour, versus the Enneagram can take a minute. I still have like one or two staff that are like, I'm not sure if I'm a 9 or a 5. And know who you're sitting down with and where their insecurities lie. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to anchor back to? Shame. Are they going to get mad? Are they going to get defensive? Are they going to try and throw someone else under the bus? Like, really trying to understand like who you're working with so you can present this in the best way possible. So, next, you want to make sure that you figured out the goal, like the actual goal of like, all right, what is my goal here sitting down with this person? And a lot of times the actual goal is going to have a why connected to it, right? Of like, well, my goal is that we stop this behavior so the entire team. And a lot of times the why does come back to the team or the patient experience. You need to make sure like that it doesn't come back to you. Like, I know that sounds so stupid. You're like, but I'm the boss. Like, right. But in my experience, I find that employees are much more open hearted about being self reflective and changing their behavior when they feel like they're doing it for their coworkers or for the patients, people that they feel on the same level with. They will do it for you for sure, but like, it's just easier if you can tether it to like the team needs you. So I want you to write down, there's two question words that I want you to get very familiar with starting questions with. What and how? So research has been done on all like the different ways that we can start a question. If, can you, would you, should, um, why, like all the different where, when, and what they found is that the two words that elicited the most heartfelt response, that created an atmosphere of safety, are starting questions with what and how. We'll come back to that because obviously you can ask an ask whole what question. What were you thinking? Is the way. Um, but so don't do that. But let's talk about this atmosphere of safety. So if I sit down with someone and I go, can you tell me why this report wasn't run last week? Okay. Does that really seem like I don't know where that's going? Like, does that really seem like I am creating a atmosphere where this person can tell me without judgment? Like, you instantly feel this fight or flight, right? And so what studies have found is that if we try and approach things more of like, um, how can I understand better things that get in the way of that report getting run? Like, what kind of things get in the way of that report that's supposed to get run on Fridays? Like, help me understand. Like, so going to that what and how are huge. And phrasing, again, see the difference in like, so hey, I see that that report didn't get run last Friday. Like, how can I help the Friday staff get that run? Because it is really important. So then I'm going to tether back to like, and I know it seems like just another, it might seem like another task that I'm just asking you to do, but that report actually helps the Monday team, blah, blah, blah. Um, and so you're coming at, now again, coming early, right? Coming into this early without anger. I'm going like, okay, it didn't get run this one time versus like, every Friday, this isn't getting run. What's going on? So using these what and how, like, what can I do to make it easier for you that you can have time to do this? Like, what can I take off your schedule? What can I take off your responsibilities so you have time to do this? How can I help you make this a priority? What and how? So, we talked about creating a safe atmosphere. And then one of the last things that you want to do is you want to, okay, we talked about listen. You're going to listen. So, you're going to ask questions and then you're going to go like, okay, you know, so, and then what I would say is reverberate back to them. Okay. So, what I'm hearing is that it's hard to get here on time because you don't drop your kid off. You can't drop your kid off until this time and you come straight here. Okay. Um, and then come to a solution together of like, okay, so knowing that my concern is that the staff is going to think that I'm being lenient with this, what do you think we should do in order to help that? Like, what can we do to make sure the team knows what's going on, or bring them in on the solution? If they're helping create the solution for the problem they're creating, they're going to be so much more invested in it than like, hey, I need you to do this. Okay. Because one is their idea. And that's just the psychology of humans is like, oh, it's their idea. So walking through that pattern, I have a couple like specific questions that I want to answer. Okay. So one is you wrote in like, how do I handle an underperforming employee? This is a great question. I love it. Good job, Bailey. Um, so my guess is that the employee has no idea they're underperforming. And I say this with love and also just not knowing. I could be way off here. But a lot of times an underperforming employee doesn't have clear expectations of what adequate performing performance is. Yeah, you get it. Um, and so a lot of times if you look back to how you hired them, probably didn't have super detailed expectations written down as to what was expected of them. And so they're guessing and they're guessing wrong. They're not performing well enough. And now you're like, well, shit. So there's a couple different ways you could approach this. Obviously, I don't know without you being live, I don't have enough of the details. So there's two different ways. So one is let's say that you have someone who you know they've got a skill set. Let's say you did hire them to do your marketing a little bit and they're showing up half-ass. So if you have like kind of like, oh no, I told them I want them to do this. So I would sit down and I would go like, okay, Sam, so I wanted to just touch base on the marketing aspect of your job. You're going to take ownership here. Okay. So you're going to go like, I am realizing in hindsight that I did not do a good job of laying out what I was asking of you. And I think I didn't maybe really know, but now that we've tried it on for like the last 6 months, I think it's a lot clearer to me of what the needs are for the marketing position. And so I'm hoping that in talking with you today, we can really shape what is doable for you with your time. So we can get on the same page. Thank you so much for like, I should have laid it out better. And like, if one day we were to have somebody else take over the marketing, I think us figuring out these expectations would be really helpful. And say, like, so then you're going to go into like, okay, so the goal of the marketing is to consistently reach as many people as possible, yada, yada, yada. So you're going into the why behind your marketing, right? It's not just about new patients, it's about having an impact. The more new patients that we bring in, the more people we affect with our marketing. It also just helps our patients stick around, right? So you're talking and being like, okay, so knowing this, what do you think like would be a good frequency that we posted? Okay, I'm getting her in. I have the idea and I know what I want her to say. And so let's say in my head, I'm like thinking like, you should be posting 3 times a week. I told you that, and then she goes like, okay, well, I think at least once a week. And you can be like, okay, once a week is definitely better than a lot of businesses do. My concern would be that it's just not quite enough. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel like 3 times a week could work? Like, do you think how can I help your schedule make time for that? Because I think three might be a better idea. How can I help your schedule have time for that? Okay. So if you do have a patient or an employee that is underperforming in this realm, then taking radical ownership of like, I just don't think I didn't realize exactly what I needed. And now that I have you at the front desk, the needs are a lot clearer. When I hired you, I was in fight or flight and like I was just like, and so taking that radical ownership of the past, even if you're like, that's not true, I did lay it out. This is just a much better way to approach the conversation from a place of not shame. Um, Now, if you have an employee that you are asking them to do things. So, like, let's say maybe you've already had that conversation. Okay. You've already been like, yeah, we've laid it out and they're still just not. Then I would do the I believe in you talk. So this is a lot more of like, okay, so we're going to go back to Sam. So let's say 3 months ago, we sat down with Sam. The conversation went great. We thought she was going to start pulling her weight. And all of a sudden, like, she's still not. We're still not. You're like, okay, is it time for me to fire Sam yet? I don't think so. I still think she's good, but she's just not doing what I'm asking her to do. So then you want to sit down and be like, hey, can we chat? Okay, so remember a couple months ago when we had that conversation, like about the marketing, you know, I feel like your schedule is just still really busy, that you're not having time for this. Like, how can I help this be a priority in your week? Is there anything I can take off your schedule? What can I do to understand this situation better? Because you're really good at this. When you do X, Y, or Z, I don't know if you realize this, but you're very good at it. And I know that you have the skills in you. So do you feel uncomfortable doing it? Like, if they're not opening up, if they're not inserting, like, well, yeah, I'm not doing it because this, take a stab at, like, do you feel like um uncomfortable? Like, you don't know the words to use? Like, really? But again, can you just see how the whole way that you're approaching the conversation is from this manager standpoint, not boss. A boss sits down and goes, Sam, I told you I need you posting 3 times a week. You haven't been posting. Like, you need to be posting 3 times a week. Okay. Hard conversation. Check. Yeah, that's one way to do it. The other is from the manager standpoint, that sits down and is like, okay, so hey, we came up with this goal together of like reaching this many people a week. How's that going? Like, you know, and like, oh, okay, yeah, I noticed though, like, some weeks we do three, sometimes not. Like, but I want to remind you that, like, this is the goal of the business. This is the goal of the team. This is the goal of our patient experience. And remember that number 7 of our manifesto is that we pour education into the community to change their lives with chiropractic and natural interventions. Um, and it doesn't really feel like we're pouring; it feels like we're dripping. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no passive aggressive sarcasm, unless you know that person, and that would get them to laugh and feel less shame. But honestly, just saying again, going back to like, hey, so this is one of our things. How can I understand better what's getting in the way? So that's how I would handle an underperforming employee early on. So the next question I have is, how often do you do formal reviews? So we used to do formal reviews once a year. Now we try to do them twice a year, but we still suck at it. We actually now, though, do more monthly meetings. So kind of monthly. There's only one formal review that we officially sit down with, and like, they fill out paper, we sit down, we go through the questions together, and it's very like formal and stuffy. What we do now is more 5 to 10 minute monthly meetings, and like, all right, what was your goal last month? What got in the way? How can I help you for future? What's your goal next month? Okay, great. You're doing great at this. Here's where I could see you, blossom more into your full capacity. Cool. Bye. The more often you do them, the less awkward, and the more you can be like, hey, okay, so we've talked about in the past that you can be perceived as bossy to your employees. Just a heads up. Like, it can happen. So like, be just conscious in your communication, but you're great. You're coming at it from this place of the heart of like, you're good. But hey, okay. So at, if you're not going to do monthly check-ins, I would say at least do quarterly check-ins with people because it really just does allow for communication that isn't a big deal to happen to. Um, I can sneak in bigger things into the monthly stuff because the previous month, the month before that, wasn't a big deal. It was like, yeah, you're doing fantastic. Good job. And so then when I do go, hey, I've been noticing this, remember, this is the why behind that system and procedure. So no big deal. You're checking it just early. And then the last question I have is how do you know when to fire someone? So this is hard because I think in general we hold on to people, air quotes, too long. And Kirby would say you're only focusing on the people who we ended up having to fire and that we should have probably fired them earlier. And I'm not thinking about all the people that I wanted to fire at some point that are still on my staff and are doing amazing. People, there's the phrase hire slow, fire fast. And that is a thing. I do think hire slow, hire, but once you have someone on your staff, you saw something in them. And if we're not talking about ethical issues of like, yeah, they stole, they no showed a shift, they punched a dog, I don't know, like if you're not talking about ethical things, then I think that giving someone plenty of time. But let me talk to you about candor. So, candor is giving that constructive, honest feedback. And if you have someone whose neck is on the chopping block, you owe it to them to talk to them and have a crucial conversation early, not when you've decided it's too late, you're over it, they need to go. So, sit down with them and really go like, have that conversation like, hey, I am seeing this. And you don't want to say, like, if you don't change it, you're going to get fired, right? Like, that's if you learned anything from them, don't do that. But you're going like, do you have questions as to why we do things this way? My concern is that if we don't do them this way, the way we've decided to as a clinic, it creates a lot of gray area. And then what happens is the staff doesn't know what to do when this problem happened. Like you're going back, and this is the whole point. Honestly, training on having crucial conversations is the whole reason that to answer this question of like have the crucial conversation before it gets to the point where you need to fire them. Because I believe that a lot of people are good. And if you saw something in them, it's worth fighting for them, but it requires you pouring into them and being awkward and uncomfortable. And well, no, hopefully not being awkward, you embracing the awkwardness, you being smooth as a cucumber and creating a safe, welcoming environment. But there's also why I said like people avoid it because they don't want to make things worse. But if you have an employee that you're like, well, they might need to go. Um, Having a hard conversation with them can be one of the most clarifying moments. If I have someone who I'm like, I just don't think that they live, breathe the culture that I'm trying to create here. I have taken an employee out. So one of the ways that I had a crucial conversation was at the end of a shift, I said like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Can we go grab a drink? Now, this is knowing my employee, knowing that she didn't have kids to get home to. And the whole drive there, I know she was just a nervous Nelly. And so she was primed and ready for like, okay, what is going to happen? And I was just like, I've noticed this. This doesn't seem like you. Is something going on? What, like, and she just broke down in tears because she realized she wasn't getting fired. I think she thought I was going to fire her. And she realized that I was showing up wholehearted, really caring in her potential and seeing more in her, seeing her potential as more than she'd been giving. and fully invested in helping her consistently stay at that full potential. And was that hard? Yes. But it saved her job. It made her relationship with me a lot stronger. And so lean in, like lean into these hard things. And then, like, if you need to send me a text and be like, oh my God, I just had to eat so much crow as I had this conversation with my front desk, but we walked away. She feels better. I think we're going to get better performance. I think the attitude's on. Like, but I just had to sit there and, you know, be like, like being a leader is really hard. So I see you. Good job. Good job training.
Okay, so if you liked what I was putting down, be sure to go check out the entire landing page of what content is included in the Launchpad. We've got conversations on the perfect annual meeting, figuring out if you're ready for an associate, hiring tips, getting out of network. There are lots of real good quality content in there. Some of which, like some of these topics, people paid me like four figures to have a single 45-minute conversation on. And you're going to get a 45-minute conversation. Like you're going to get 13 of them. So it's like, realistically, if we did that math, the course should cost $13,000. It doesn't. You're welcome. Okay. So next is a clip from the Growth Lab. The Growth Lab is like the Launchpad's cool little brother. It's just like a quick little amuse bouche. In the course, we break down the foundational concepts of your marketing. So we go through the three main forms: digital, internal, and external. This is not a social media course, okay? This is not a 101 on Instagram. This is like broad concepts of understanding how to market a brick and mortar because it's different. It is different. And if you are following a lot of marketing on social media, you might be kind of coming up empty handed because you're not encapsulating everything. So this is a great little course for chiros who maybe don't have that new girl energy anymore. Okay. Like you've been marketing for 5, 6, 7 years or 2 or 3, however long it took you to lose that energy, and you want to be re-inspired. Or if you want to hand it off to your CA and associate, but you don't have the time to train them. Oh my gosh. Normally this course is $297. If you're listening in the first 2 weeks of this episode, you will get it for $197. Like, no brainer. No brainer. So here is a little episode from the Growth Lab.
Okay, so this training is on becoming the authority in your community. This is a really important one because I feel like so often when we start a practice, we want to be everything for everyone. But yet we want to be known for something. I haven't talked to a chiropractor in a long time who's like, yeah, no, I'm just everything in general and nothing, right? Like we all want to be known for something that we care deeply about, the reason that, gets us up and going. So, what I'll say to you, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but there's nothing that you can do that's going to make you the authority overnight. You could literally get put on national news about pediatric chiropractic. And would that help? Well, heck yeah, of course it would help. But when people go to like look you up, if you didn't have any kind of track record to get there, right? Like you wouldn't even get on the news. But like if you had no testimonials, if you had nothing else out there really proving your worth, it would be a struggle for you to be the authority. So there's a lot of steps to do, but ultimately you do need to realize that this is something that happens with just taking the right actions over time. So the number one thing, and oh my gosh, how many times have we said this? I think it's the number one thing that we start out with on all of our marketing training is, what is your niche? You can't be the specialist on everything. So often new businesses are so afraid to say no, but
Who are you taking care of and what is their problem? Now, if your niche doesn't match your passion, then you may have an issue. If really love children, but you are looking for a niche in like soft wave or laser or things like that, decompression, what's going to end up happening is you're going to start to come across as a little like inauthentic because you're going to be speaking out of two completely different sides of your mouth. So really make sure that what you're passionate about is your niche. Even if you think for some reason, oh, people wouldn't be interested in that, because that goes, to the next thing of deepen your knowledge. If you choose a niche that you are not interested in, you're not going to want to read on it. You're not going to study up on it. You're not going to want to go to seminars on this. This is a long game. And in order to really become the authority, you need to stay up to date on what is happening with your niche, what happened, and what was going on, and what were some of the main issues with my niche when I started over a decade ago are similar, but the solutions and what's being thrown in parents' faces are different now. So I have to stay aware. I have to make sure that I'm attending workshops in order to become an expert and really staying interested in this. So the next one is building a strong online presence. This may go without saying, but this is a website. Do you have a weekly email? Is the weekly email set for your niche? If your niche is kids and families, what's the weekly email on? It should be all around healthy recipes for families, events in your community for families. Um, just making sure that your social media is dedicated to this thing that you care about, and making sure that you're sharing valuable content regularly to showcase your knowledge. So this is almost like a ladder that we're building, because every time we add one on, okay, so you need to be consistently sharing online value. Okay, well, where is this consistent value coming from? Well, by your persistent seeking of deepening your knowledge and wanting to care for that niche. So if you pick the right niche, then you're going to continue to want to learn and understand. And then the next step is just continue to share what you're learning. I'm going to interject something here. Some people think that in order to become the authority in an area, they need to be perfect and they need to have all the answers right away. That is not true. You should know a lot. All right. Like, I'm not going to lie. You should know a lot, but you're not expected to know everything. So the next one is having a strong network and collaboration. When I first started, I felt like I needed to have all the answers and needed to be able to fix all of my niche's issues. In reality, just simply having a general knowledge, think about like a general practitioner or a family practice doc. They don't feel bad that when they have to refer to a cardiologist or ears, nose, throat, or, gastroenterology, they don't feel bad. They know that they have their lane, and parents trust them, that like when they make a referral, it's not that it makes them look bad. They go to them for that referral. So keep that in mind, that having a strong network is incredibly important. If you are in prenatal and pediatric, you don't need to know everything there is about lactation. For me, what I've found is that being the authority in prenatal and pediatric care means that I know some of the yellow flags and red flags in an area. And I know when to tell a new mom, this doesn't sound normal. And let me take a look for a couple things that I can look for. Let me rule out what I know, but what you're experiencing doesn't sound normal. And I think it's time that you make this phone call. And here's a business card for someone that I really trust and respect in this area. You are connecting with your patients in that aspect still and still becoming an authority on the newborn area of expertise by being that conduit to more people collaborating. This is also really important that you're at the events that match, you know, going to um, the meetups of groups. I'm trying to get outside. I'm so in the world of pediatric and prenatal that I don't know what kind of events. Okay, let's say that you're more of a physical therapy, rehab. Are you making the connections with the CrossFit gyms? Are you going to some of these events? Do you have a healthy relationship with a physical therapist in the area, and making sure that you're at sporting events? Do you want to volunteer your time, coaching little league soccer? Like, I don't know, maybe that's more kids again. You just can't get me away from the kids. But just making sure that you're networking and collaborating with these people in your community. Now, we talked about creating a strong online presence and showcasing your knowledge, but you want to additionally provide value. So you want to provide value. This is in social media. Okay, so there's three areas here. There's digital, making sure that you're providing that value on your reels. Yes, good job. Make sure that you're showing up on TikTok and doing that. But value goes much further and deeper than that. It's also the value, like I talked about, with your patients. What more can you offer your patients? Do you want handouts? We're a high volume clinic, so sometimes it feels like providing additional value takes up time that I don't always have. But if you have patients in your niche that they're going to struggle with some of the most common hurdles, is there a video that you can make? So we have a video showing our most common pregnancy stretches, and we just text it to our patient. We have handouts on our favorite supplements for immunity. These are things, even if you have longer appointments, having PDFs that you can print, postcards with information on it that you can send home with mom or dad or your patient to look up on. Go do your own research on this. Here's what I recommend. These are also great things if you have printouts that you can leave with the one I just mentioned, the network professionals in your area. So here's an example that I will use that recently happened. We're providing a workshop for our patients and other pregnant women in our community. So this is actually a postpartum workshop. We're encouraging pregnant women to come too. And we are reaching out to the area network professionals and giving them information about the workshop. They know and trust us, so they'll happily send people to it. This is also providing value to our community by having a free workshop on an area that I know my niche will struggle with. But I reached out because we're trying to keep the workshop to only an hour. And I'm not a lactation specialist. And so I'm not going to spend, there could be an entire new nursing mom hour workshop, right? We know this. So I reached out to the lactation specialist that I know and trust and asked if she had any resources that she would want to share. I'm going to be giving out a packet of information. And she gave me 4 pages of PDFs, a pamphlet, and a postcard, all of information. They have a free consult. That was the postcard that she was. And she really provided so much value and handouts for me to give. If you had someone, if you had a daycare, if you had a CrossFit gym, if you had a sports team, if you had a nursing home, reach out and say, hey, we'd like to have some of your information. Do you have more value and resources to give than just your business card. Really take the time to build those tools and have them around. So, making sure that you are seeking speaking opportunities. So, yes, sometimes, I feel like a lot of times as chiropractors, we feel like we have to make our own events. But just seeking out speaking on the area you want to be known for. This is all the Rotary clubs, the Knights of Columbus, the Chamber of Commerce events. Are there leadership events that your church is holding that, going to the schools and seeing if, you can come and speak on stress at, what are their in-service days, really reaching out. And I recommend, if before you do this, creating it's called a one page. So this is another thing you would make in a marketing Canva type resource. It's going to have your headshot and your background and training, areas that you love to speak on. So give multiple different areas that you love to speak on and your background on knowledge. This is, when you are asked to speak at another person's event. Okay, so even if you sought out the speaking opportunity, if anytime that you're on stage, you are instantly put into a position of authority. Okay, so that goes along with the next one of seek to be published. So I recommend not reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. If you have a blog post, and let's say you've been writing a blog post for a couple years, go back, find a blog post that you already wrote, make it up to date and submit it to your area newspaper, your area magazines, like a lot of local magazines, or we'll have a parenting of Dallas or things like that. Submit that. Realize that now sometimes you may need to pay for advertising to be published. And that is just kind of the name of the game. But a lot of consumers don't know that. So, I can tell you without throwing anyone under the bus that some chiropractors really like to boast that they've been featured in Forbes or some of these really high magazines. And now sometimes, yes, those are authentic. But also, do you know how many times a year I get asked to basically pay to be featured? I can pay them to be featured as Forbes. So most people don't know this kind of thing. So seeing where can you be published? This can also be cross collaborating, being published on someone else's blog. Okay, so in your area, are there other bloggers, Mom's Blog of Dallas or whatever? I'm so jealous of these bigger communities that no, jealous, but not you have all these opportunities that I just don't have, but it also is a lot harder to become an expert in such a large community. So you do have to do these things. Write a really great article on something that, because you're keeping your finger on the pulse of your niche, you're watching what's coming out in the news, you're watching what's concerning them. Write a fantastic article that is providing value and submit it to a ton of different bloggers. Reach out to different podcasters in the area. Reach out to those people with your headshot, your one page, again, with your logo, or not your logo. Well, yes, your logo, but really your headshot, because when you're becoming an authority, a lot of us want it to be our brand, our chiropractic clinic. But keep in mind that creating a personal brand is going to go further with a lot of these connections than hey, I'm this chiropractor. I'm from this chiropractic clinic. Really build you as the doctor. You're highlighting I am Dr. Sarah Smith, pediatric chiropractor at this clinic. Okay. And if you have associates, you're well, I want the whole clinic. I know, I get that. But people are more weary that you're going to be self-promoting if you're really pushing your clinic versus the advice that you're coming to give. So when seeking out being on, podcasts that are specific to your area, magazines that are specific to your area. You're going to want to lead with your face and doctor slash chiropractor and expert on, than like Blue Hills Chiropractic, Dr. Smith Chiropractic, Doctor. Hopefully that makes sense. Making sure that your testimonials and reviews are so the next thing, I jumped quickly. The next thing is making sure that your testimonials and reviews are in alignment with your niche and what you're putting out information on. So this is where I said, like, yes, you can't really become an authority overnight. You can do a great article on immune system, on disc decompression, on sprains, strains. But when people start going down the rabbit hole, they want to see the proof is in the pudding. They want to see if you publish an article on how to recover from a major injury and run a marathon. Look at me coming up with all these different niches now that I've just needed to get warmed up. With running a marathon, do you have, does your social media have testimonials? Does your Google review have reviews based on like Dr. So-and-so got me up and running? If you need to be honest with your patients and say, hey, we love all chiropractic. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm so glad that we helped your husband with his low back, but like, we're really trying to make our clinic become the authority on birthing. Would you be willing to write a Google review on your birth experience with us? Bring them into this. It's okay to tell them we're trying to create a name for ourselves in this specific niche. Bring them in on that, and it's okay. So the last thing I'll say is make sure that you confirm it with everything when they walk into your clinic. If you are a sports performance clinic, I want you to do an exercise. Fast forward your thinking. Envision 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where you are hands down the authority in your town on this topic. What does your clinic look like then? What do you have? What do the materials look like? What do your chairs in your waiting room look like? What does your staff wear? What kind of tools and equipment do you use for a new patient exam? Forward think, what would the authority on this, what would their clinic look like? And do everything in your power and budget to make your clinic do that. This was a really, I'll kind of end with this example. When I first started, I was setting up my clinic, and not to age myself at all, but digital x-raying had just come out. So it was one of those things where it was like clinics, putting an old school model in seemed really dumb, but digital x-raying seemed very expensive for a new startup trying to be budget friendly. And the school I went to really made you kind of feel dumb if you were going to start up without an x-ray, which I won't tell you which school I went to, but that just tells you a lot about their philosophy and stuff like that. And not that you can't have strong philosophy and take x-rays, but like basically it was just very rehab heavy. And I had to sit with this discomfort of like, shoot, I'm going to start a clinic and I don't think I want an x-ray. In addition to not wanting the expense, it was more of, did it actually align? I wanted to be a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor. Now, what two areas? Now, I know that like Gonsteaders, Gondroids, don't come after me. I know you guys x-ray kids, but like I'm not Gondroid. And I wasn't going to be x-raying kids. In fact, if I was going to be x-raying kids, there was probably something pretty serious going on. So I wouldn't mind collaborating with the medical field on that. And so I felt really confident in not putting x-ray into my clinic because it didn't match the image I was trying to give to my future consumer. So put everything through that lens. Remember that this authority, it is not about self-promotion. There's a difference between I want to be the most successful pediatric chiropractor and I want to be the authority. It's about genuinely helping and serving your community over and over and over again. You do this, you become a valuable resource, and you are naturally going to gain recognition over time in the area of your expertise. So stick with it. Don't get discouraged and pick something you love and are passionate about to become the authority on. Good luck.
All right. So go check out the savings on both of those courses. But before we leave, one final ask for a little teeny favor. Please make sure now that the episode is wrapped that you go and click follow or subscribe on the podcast, as it really is the number one birthday gift you could give me. Until next week, listeners, bye.